Tonight, Dunedin people take to the city streets and protest at the way their rates are being levied. Good evening. About 1,200 angry Dunedin ratepayers are now meeting in the town hall after a march down George Street tonight. They're demonstrating their opposition to the city's new capital rating system. They want a return to the old land value system. Kim Hurring followed the protest march.
The marchers started assembling at the Exchange just after 5 this evening, and by 5:30 there were about 400 of them. There to make the council know how they feel about this year's rates bills.
Because there's no democracy in the way they've gone about changing the rate system.
Well, I think the rates are all out of proportion myself.
Because my rates have gone up.
And the same with me. It's from one unfair system to another.
My rates have gone up 272%, and it's far too high for where I live.
I'm here because I'm a campaigner for the good things, and I believe that the rates they've chosen a very bad time when New Zealand's in such a furore.
They were asked before they left to remain orderly, and along the route up George Street there were no problems. Organisers had been hoping for as many as 4,000 marchers, but they weren't disappointed. Incredible! It's not the 4,000 you expected though, is it?
No, but it shows just how we feel.
A petition of more than 9,000 signatures has just been presented to the City Council. By the time it was presented, there were more than 1,200 people sitting in the town hall. Tonight, the council will consider the petition, as well as a call from the Labour Party councillors for a referendum to be held on the whole issue.
Kim Hurring at the Dunedin Town Hall. A trip to Rome for an Oamaru teenager turned to tragedy today when he and 2 other members of his family died in a road accident while en route to Christchurch Airport. Those who died were 41-year-old Leonie Ray Olds, her 17-year-old son Glenn, and 13-year-old daughter Justine, all of Oamaru. Their car was in a collision with a truck and trailer near Waimate. The Otago Racing Fraternity welcomed home a winner today, the horse who ran away with the Australian Grand National last month. Wingatui export Derrydonnell returned to his home track for the first time since his Australian success, and Ken Nicholson was there.
It was back home again today for Derrydonnell, the pride of Wingatui when he beat the best Australia had to offer in the Australian Grand National at the famous Flemington course. And after all the public clamour he's had since, he seemed to like stretching his legs along the Wingatui Straight. But this was just a stroll from the incident-filled National, where the tough Flemington jumps proved far too tough for most of his Australian rivals.
They've covered one circuit of the track. River Amos trying to lead throughout. Derrydonnell's been parked right on top of him all the way, but Blondo fell. Derrydonnell in front, he's stopping. Prince Lindell coming fast, but going to be too late, I think. Derrydonnell's won by 2 lengths to Prince.
Derrydonnell's trainer Bryan Kennedy said today that New Zealand has a lot to learn from the Australian racing scene.
Well, I think Australia's professional. Here, I think it's more run by amateurs.
Is that only because of the difference in stakes?
Oh, well, I don't think that. I think, the conference, they sent a team of amateurs down here to teach professionals the jumping game. And, when we've got people like Akakau and Ray Kearns, Bill Hillis, sending amateurs down to teach them people, I think the game is very amateur in New Zealand.
And on Saturday, Derrydonnell was paid the tribute of leading out the New Zealand Grand National field at Riccarton.
So therefore his task is to lead out the 88 national field.
And once again it was a Wingatui horse which turned up trumps.
Lord Venture's going to win the Lion Brown, the 114th Grand National. He's well clear. He's out by 6 lengths. Therapeutic running on. And just to the inside of it, Storm, but Lord Venture wins the National.
I think it's great for Wingatui. We've got great facilities here to teach jumpers, and the good ones that seem to be coming from here.
These are both Trelay horses. Obviously the breeding behind these horses is tremendous.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, Trelay's been a great horse for jumpers, and I just hope we get another one.
Well, there would be a lot of interest in the public now to see these two line up against each other, and no doubt there's a good deal of rivalry between you and Bryan Anderton and the 2 horses, is that right?
Oh, yes, I suppose there will be. Hope we can race one another again next year.
But meanwhile, Derrydonnell has earned a rest until midsummer, when he may start work again with a possible Easter campaign in Adelaide in the offing.
Welcome back. Remember the old cold range Grandma used to use? Outdated? A thing of the past? Not likely. They're still being restored and manufactured in Dunedin, and the demand for them is growing all the time. Here's Bernard Buck.
You could say coal ranges are on the move, and the man who's moving them is Don Harry. Don Harry started this spare parts and coal range restoration business about 3 years ago, and got so many inquiries from a single advertisement that he realised he'd hit the jackpot. There'd been a gap in the local coal range trade since the Shacklocks foundry closed 17 years ago.
People were dubious about hanging on to coal ranges because the service was not available and the parts wouldn't be available. However, when the opportunity came for me to take over this side of the business, people then came away from using pure electrical goods, because 60% of your power, of course, is attributed to hot water use. And here you have a situation whereby installing a coal range, you could have a waste disposal unit, hot water, a background of heat in your house, as well as having cooking facilities.
When the Dunedin manufacturer's Shacklocks changed hands in 1985, Don Harry had been spare parts manager for 25 years. He was given the option of moving to Auckland with a new company or retiring. He did neither. Using his superannuation money, he put up this building in Kaikorai Valley and began selling coal range parts he got from Shacklocks. Later, he bought the foundry equipment of a Timaru company which included the patents for Zealandia and Champion parts. He then set up his parts and refurbishing business.
We actually stripped them down completely, down to the last nut and bolt. They're then physically checked for wear or breakages. These parts are replaced. The whole unit then is systematically through a sandblasting and shot blasting process. It's completely cleaned, and from there it goes into a spray booth where the internal componentry is sprayed with a heat-resistant black paint. They're then reassembled, and then you can have a choice of vitreous enamel outer panels, which is put on at the last moment.
The model most restored is the Shacklock 501. It went into production back in 1950 and was manufactured until 1971. It's probably best remembered by its green enamel facings. Other models getting the treatment are the standard black Zealandia number 1 and the Champion black number 2. So what about price?
Well, depending on the range itself, depending on how much we put into it, we could have put $500 of parts into it. But we'd say the average price of a range would be about $1,350, which includes GST and delivery.
How would that compare with, say, importing them?
Very favourably. An imported coal range, the cheapest on the market is about $4,000 to $5,000, and they're not totally cast iron.
As well as his parts and refurbishing service, Don Harry is also redeveloping and manufacturing a new version of Shacklock's popular Myro stove, which was a big seller between the 1940s and 1960s. He's also turning out a new version of a Shacklock kitchen destructor. And as for the future of the restoration business, well, Don Harry thinks it's good. He estimates there are still about 6,000 coal ranges in Otago, Southland and the West Coast, which could easily be brought back into use.
A self-portrait exhibition at Dunedin's Murray Gallery has had the region's artists taking a fresh look at themselves. Some have been looking in mirrors, some at photographs, and others inside themselves to produce a collection of self-portraits which is on display for the next 2 weeks. Lee Davies went along to the opening and found there are many different ways in which we can see ourselves.
Nordhoff has painted a mirror image. It's one of several self-portraits she's done, and she likes it.
I like the penetrating gaze in it, and I like the composition. It's very simple, and I tied the composition in with the, what you call the still life of the portrait, which is the shirt, and I like the simplicity of it.
Else has also painted a portrait of fellow artist Sue Clifford. But Sue's own contribution to the exhibition is different again.
Well,
the centre strut in it is from a piece of a series of mine called The Guardians, which was about the psyche of the ancient jesters and mummers, etc. And I felt with a self-portrait, well, I think every work an artist produces is a self-portrait to a certain extent. I think it's a very strong piece, and I've got a reasonably strong personality. I think most artists have, or we'd all have done what our parents wanted us to do in the way of occupation, and artist is just something you say, no, well, I'm sticking at this, as long as it's financially viable. But it does take quite a bit of strength of personality to hang in there sometimes.
There are all kinds of personalities here, more than 40 of them, and they see themselves in many mediums. Annie Baird. Ralph Hoteri. Shona McFarlane. Blair Smith.
I had this idea that I'd draw around my shape and try and show something about what I feel inside.
This is as you see yourself in the mirror, and this other one's from a photograph from two profiles, which gave me quite a different front face. I think that's more me, the age I am. I might be a bit younger in that one, perhaps I should keep that one.
Writer Hal Smith may not paint, but his contribution of a poem is the last word in self-portraiture.
My cheeks have now become jowls, attempting to join my neck for mutual comfort in the collar of my shirt. My chest has gravitated to my stomach in a most dispiriting shift of emphasis, so more and more I look like Ronald Reagan, forsaking my cowboy days for the Sunday horrors as the world's most really incredible melting man.
Know exactly how he feels, the joys of growing old. Well, Hillary's got a touch of the tummy bug tonight. Hopefully she'll be back with you tomorrow. For now, I'll say goodnight as we take a quick look at 3 o'clock temperatures in the south. In Half Moon Bay, it was cloudy and 8 degrees. Invercargill, cloudy and 11, with a high tomorrow of 11. Gort was fine and 13. Balclutha, partly cloudy, 11. Dunedin, cloudy and 12, with a high tomorrow of 14. Palmerston, it was 14. Oamaru, fine and 13. Coorau, the high of 17. Ranfurly, 12. Queenstown, partly cloudy and 13. In Wanaka, fine and 12. Alexandra, sunny and 13. In Te Anau, it was partly cloudy and 11.